This is the Louie T Network. The journey is long, and nobody said it was going to be easy. But all we've got is us. All that believe is us. The Redskins Report.
Welcome, all my fellow Redskin brethren and sister. I am your man and resident Redskins fan, Lou. Thank you for joining me here on the Redskins Report. Wow, family, it's been too long. Absolutely, way too long. I missed you guys. How have you been? A lot has happened since the last time we've reconvened. So, come in. We got to talk. Come in. Shut the door. Have a seat. Make yourself comfortable. We're going to be here a while. But, as expected, I come bearing great news. I'm here to be the voice of reason. A lot of you are upset right now. Some of you are happy. Some of you are still indifferent. Others of you have moved on and you're starting to see things in a different light. I want you to be more of the latter, okay? I think much of you during the course of last season started to feel indifferent. I myself fell right in that category, and with the play on the field and the uninspiring nature of which we went about our business in the front office and the coaching staff and everything surrounding Redskins Park, really made it easy to just disconnect from the entire Washington Redskins football season and organization. And so I'm here to kind of reel you back in. I'm throwing that hook out there. I'm casting you back in, and I'm telling you, you gotta believe. And we've done some things in this offseason to kind of give us hope. They do this to us all the time. They throw us a couple of bones in the offseason, get us all lathered up, only to be disappointed throughout the regular season. But I'm here to tell you, this feels slightly different. Not all the way. There are still some small things that make you feel like they haven't quite changed 100%. But again, you can't look for wholesale changes overnight. You got to take your baby steps. I'm just glad we're going in the right direction. And there are a number of decisions made in this offseason that led me to believe that this organization is finally taking the right steps in the right direction. Let's go through the timeline of how we have gotten to the point where we are now. I'll run over them quickly, and then we'll go back through them with a fine-tooth comb in a second. Let's just go through the events that have led us to where we are now here on January 24th. So, you start back in 2014. The last day of 2014, December 31st, the Redskins finally decide to cut ties with defensive coordinator Jim Haslett. I was a little worried, and I told you this the final game of the season, that I was a little worried that the Redskins may not do this because they had asked head coach Jay Gruden about how he felt retaining the services of Jim Haslett. You know, they're great friends. They go back to the Arena Football League, and they are guys that have a relationship off the field. I was a little worried that Jay Gruden would use his influence to potentially want to keep Jim Haslett around, especially after that Philadelphia win. Everybody was giddy after Week 16 and that win on that Saturday. I was a little worried. Luckily enough for us, the Cowboys destroyed us in Week 17 and kind of put that final nail in the coffin of one Jim Haslett. He was let go. They said that they mutually agreed to part ways. Whatever you want to call it, he was no longer going to be the Redskins defensive coordinator as of December 31st, 2014. You fast forward 1 week into 2015, January 6, 2015, the Redskins make it official that they have found their new general manager. Remember, all of those titles were currently being held by Bruce Allen, president of Order of Operations, general manager. You name it, Bruce Allen was that guy. We all know that Bruce Allen does wonders with contracts and making sure that they're not egregious. We all know that he does a great job of being the president of this team, whether it's the name controversy or it's picking out the jerseys or it's inviting the alumni back to the stadium and having a lot of things for them. He does a great job with all of the off the field things, which is something that has gotten him into trouble with us Redskins fans with the comment, we're winning off the field. However, he's great off the field. Exactly that. We need a guy that's great for us on the field, that can get us talent to help us win on the field. And so he had to glide to the side and allow someone with football acumen to come in. Hence, Redskins went out and got a guy with exactly that, the pedigree to match, in general manager Scott McCloughan. So McCloughan comes in and he's introduced, and we'll talk about him a little bit later on January 6th. On the 14th of January, the Redskins report, or excuse me, Ian Rappaport reports that the Redskins are close to finalizing a deal with Joe Barry to make him the next defensive coordinator of the Washington Redskins. So Redskins are on the hunt for a coordinator. They wanted to talk to Vic Fangio. The day after the turn of the new year, the 49ers denied them that opportunity because they didn't know who they were going to make their next head coach. So Redskins went ahead and just went in a different direction. And it seemed like Joe Barry was going to be the guy. That was the report that Ian Rappaport reported. It seemed like it was legit. And then all of a sudden, the 49ers promote their defensive line coach, Jim Tomsula, to head coach, basically ending their relationship with Vic Fangio, who had made the comment 3 days prior that if you don't hire Mike Shanahan or myself to be the next head coach, I'm not sticking around. So by them hiring Jim Tomsula and promoting him to head coach, the same day as the Redskins were looking to make it official with Joe Barry, that opened up the door for the Redskins to go back and interview a guy that they were interested in interviewing from the jump in Vic Fangio. So instead of the Redskins finalizing things with Joe Barry, they said, hey, hold on. Nobody else is coming after you. You'll still be there when we come back. Hold on right there. Don't put the pen down. We've got the contract right here. Hold the pen. We'll be right back. They call up Vic Fangio and they set up an interview with him. And it turns out, while all of that is going on, Redskins trying to sort out who the next defensive coordinator is going to be, quietly, the very next day on January 15th, Redskins wrestle away offensive line coach Bill Callahan from the Cowboys and name him to the exact same position within our organization. So that was a huge get for the Redskins. We know about the struggles of this offensive line. We know how well the Cowboys fared with their offensive line, and we'll talk about what that means for the Redskins a little bit later on. But getting back to the defensive coordinator search, on the 20th of January, just 4 days ago, Vic Fangio decides, John Fox in Chicago makes a lot of sense for me. I'm heading to Chicago. Sorry, Redskins, can't join your group. And so with that news, the Redskins tell Joe Barry, okay, you can go ahead, put ink to paper. We're going to make you our next defensive coordinator in Washington, D.C. And so that's where we are today, January 24th. Redskins have a defensive coordinator. Redskins have a new general manager. Redskins have a new offensive line coach. They're starting to sort out all of their positional coaches. And so it looks like the Redskins are starting to iron out their staff and kind of get everything lined up. They're right now doing the whole Senior Bowl thing and the East-West Shrine game. They're trying to get all their ducks lined up for the entire draft process then they'll start kind of turning their attention to free agency and those things. But as far as the staff and the organization is concerned, they're taking steps to try to fill everything out and move forward in the process. And so let's go back to the beginning of this timeline. January 31st, Redskins get rid of defensive coordinator Jim Haslett. Look, I think we're all in agreement that that needed to happen. Was a little nervous that that wouldn't happen, especially after that Philadelphia game. Redskins beat the Eagles, eliminate them effectively from playoff contention because the Cowboys won the very next day and put them out. So it seemed like everybody was so excited about that win. I was a little nervous that that would be enough to keep Haslett around and the Redskins throw up all over themselves in the season finale versus the Cowboys. And that was that. So good to see him gone. Look, I didn't have a lot of animosity built up towards Jim Haslett like some of you may have. I thought he did what he could with what he had at some times, but my problem with him was the inconsistencies of his play calling. One week we blitzed, the next week we wouldn't. He would change in the middle of a game. Sometimes he wouldn't make adjustments. There were just too many inconsistencies with him as a defensive coordinator, and he had too long here to get it right and hadn't done so, and so it was time for a change. So that takes us to our next big move, bringing in a guy with clout, a guy with football acumen, someone that gets it, that is regarded around the league as one of the best eyes of talent, best talent evaluators around the National Football League landscape, and that's General Manager Scott McCloughan, who the Redskins signed to a very lucrative contract. Don't know the exact particulars of it, but we all know it was going to take a lot to get him here. We also know that Daniel Snyder has very deep pockets. And he was rumored to have been in the Redskins general manager hunt for a long time. And in fact, the Redskins, it seemed like a formality. It just seemed like they were working on terms of conditions of the contract. And you know, let's talk about Scott McCloughan. Here's a guy that his dad was a general manager for the Oakland Raiders. And so he goes way back with John Gruden in the days of the Oakland Raider days. So he has some familiarity with the Gruden family, not necessarily with Jay as much as John, but hey, I know your brother, I know you just by default. So there is a little bit of knowledge. They don't really know each other personally that much, do Jay Gruden and Scott McCloughan, but the fact of the matter is, here's a guy that helped turn the 49ers franchise around. Keep in mind, the 49ers are one of the most storied franchises in the league, and then they fell on hard times. He comes in around 2005 and helps build this thing back up the right way through the draft. You look at this 49ers team and the way they're constructed now, he's a large part of the reason why this team is so talented. The drafts that he helped put forth during those years that he was with the 49ers from 2005 to 2009 really helped shape and mold the 49ers franchise to where they are right now. And so he was a huge part of getting them back on track. And those 3 NFC Championship games that they went to consecutively, Scott McCloughan has a huge footprint in those NFC Championship game appearances for the San Francisco 49ers because of what he was able to help build through the draft. He then moved on to Seattle, did the exact same thing there from 2010 to 2012, where he helped shape and mold that organization and get them back to where they are. Drafted a lot of guys. You look at Richard Sherman and Russell Wilson as the most notable picks, but there are a lot of picks in between that no one talks about that help shape and mold that team as well. And I think his actual prognosis and his analysis of Russell Wilson coming into the league was one that a lot of people harped on. He basically said that, hey, this kid, even though he's only 5'10", 5'11", I'd like my quarterback to be a lot bigger. He has the it factor. He is going to be one heck of a quarterback in this league, and we would be best served if we took this kid. That's when he was a general manager in Seattle. That's what they ended up doing, taking Russell Wilson. The rest is history. He's already won 1 Super Bowl, going to see if he can win another in consecutive seasons. So the history has been written there. We already see how he's done in other stops. Now, the one drawback to bringing him in, and the reason why he's still not with the 49ers, the reason why he's still not with Seattle, is because of some of his demons off the field. Now, you always root for people. As Americans, as people, we love redemption stories. We love a great comeback. We love to see people get a second chance and succeed. Well, he's had 2 chances already. This is his 3rd. You're hoping the 3rd time's the charm for him. He talked about his struggles with alcoholism and the troubles that he had in his marriage and how his life sort of fell apart and how he's trying to put the pieces back together. And so you ask yourself, why is this time different? You don't know why this time is different. He's talked about learning from past experiences and being a better person, a better man. And now hopefully he'll be better in every aspect of his life. You wish him nothing but the best, especially us as Redskins fans. We wish him nothing but the best in his personal life. And we also hope that because his personal life is in order, he can come in and be a huge factor in the Redskins turning their franchise around, because Lord knows we need it in the worst way, especially in the front office, because that's been the problem in Washington for the longest time. We haven't been good judges of talent. We haven't done the best in bringing in talented football players that you could look at and say, hey, this guy could play in the league anywhere. Okay, this guy, if not here in Washington, he'll play somewhere else. There's been too many times we've had guys on our roster that you say to yourself, if this guy isn't on our team, he would not be playing in the National Football League. There are too many times that the Redskins squander picks. His track record says that Robert Griffin III trade would have never happened. The Redskins would have stood pat at number 6, selected a guy there, and they would never have given up the king's ransom that it took to bring Robert Griffin III in here. Now, hindsight is 2020. We all agree that had Robert Griffin III panned out, we would not be having this discussion. I mean, the Giants gave up king's ransom for Eli Manning. He's worked out, has won 2 Super Bowls. Nobody's even talking about that trade anymore because it worked. Because ours didn't, that's why it's such a big problem. But Scott McCloughan in his track record says that he didn't waste draft picks. In fact, he talked about this in his press conference. He loves to stockpile picks. He's a guy that builds his team through the draft. And if you know anything about the Green Bay Packers and their model, which is where Scott McCloughan comes from, which, to give you a little bit more background information on him, he came up in the Green Bay Packer ranks. He was under Ted Thompson and Wolf and Company, Ron Wolf and Company in Green Bay in the heydays. And so he learned from some of the best to ever do it as general managers. And when he was an intern there, he learned how to do things the right way. And the Green Bay Packers model is an excellent one to follow. They don't do a lot in free agency. They keep their own. They draft their own. They groom their own. They keep their own. And they don't do a lot in free agency. Every now and again, the Packers will peek their head into free agency like they did with Julius Peppers this past offseason, but that is rare. They rarely go out and spend money in free agency. They usually use their money and their assets to retain their own, and they do a lot of their damage. If you look at the Packers, a large percentage, the largest percentage of any team in the league, the Packers have players that are homegrown, drafted, and never played for another team. That's the Green Bay Packers. That's what we're looking for here in Washington, and Scott McCloughan is going to do his best to try to bring that here to the nation's capital. So that is a relief. Also, with his hiring, you feel like there's a changing of the guard in Washington. You feel like Daniel Snyder is definitely going to relinquish. And again, I'm not one of these conspiracy theorists that feels like Daniel Snyder has his hand in each and every single decision that happens in Washington. I think before, back in the days in the early 2000s when he first took over, I think he was largely to blame for a lot of the things that went on. The firing of Marty Schottenheimer and, the hiring of the old ball coach Steve Spurrier and all the things that were going on early on in the process when he first took over as the owner. I think he had a lot to do. Jeff George starting over Brad Johnson, all of those things. That was Daniel Snyder at his worst. I think over the years, he's taken a step back, and gradually he's taking more steps back to the backdrop and allowing football guys to do what it is they do. And so I don't think he's been as influential of late. And I think this move might be the final piece in getting him to actually take a seat and just allow the football guys, because he realizes what I've been doing over the past, decade and a half hasn't worked. So how about I let guys who understand how this thing works, let them do their job, and I'll do mine, which is handle the money side of things and continue to bring in revenue for this organization, which is what he's done brilliantly, but that doesn't help us on the field. And so now he's allowing guys to come in and do exactly that. So let's hope that the hiring of Scott McCloughan will do exactly that. Bring talent in, bring more prestige to this franchise, and kind of get our name back. Right now, we're one of the worst franchises in the league. You look at us, you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, you look at the Oakland Raiders, we're all laughing stocks of this league. Teams around the league look at us and they laugh. And we want to get back to where we're a respected organization, where people want to come here to coach, to play, to be a part of a rich tradition. Who wants to keep talking about the past, how we used to do it? Let's create some new tradition. Let's create some new history here. And the only way to do that in a positive light is to start taking forward steps in the right direction. And the hiring of General Manager Scott McCloughan is exactly that in Washington. You go to the hiring of Bill Callahan, which was a very under-the-radar, quiet hiring because everyone was so caught up in the defensive coordinator search that this one kind of was swept under the rug. If you weren't paying attention, then you missed this one. But this is a very big hire for the Redskins. Again, not only do you get a guy that comes in with great pedigree. When I talk about some of the best offensive line coaches in the league, you talk about Tony Sparano, you talk about Mike Tice, you talk about Bill Callahan. These are all names that get mentioned. You can throw Aaron Cromer in there as well. When you start talking about some of the best teachers in the game when it comes to the offensive line, Bill Callahan's name is normally mentioned as one of the first 4 or 5 that you rattle off when you start talking offensive line gurus. And so here's a guy that we got from Dallas. So not only do you bring in a guy that is a great teacher that can help our offensive line, which we need in the worst way, but you also weaken a key divisional rival and arguably our most hated rival. Hell, that's not even up for debate. You crippled the Cowboys in a way too because he was huge and instrumental in helping that offensive line become as dominant as they were in the 2014 season. Now, take nothing away from the Cowboys offensive line. They are talented in their own right. When you spend 3 first-round picks on that line in consecutive years, those are the type of results that you're expecting. But you also need someone to come in and mold those guys and show them the ropes and show them how to get it done and allow them to have cohesion and gel as a unit. And Bill Callahan was the glue that kept that offensive line together. And so to take him away from them, that was a big get for the Redskins. Now, there are a couple of reasons why Callahan was brought in. A, Redskins get rid of Chris Forrester, who was the old offensive line coach. He's more of a zone run blocking scheme guy. He's a ZBS guy. And that was a holdover from the Shanahan clan and how they like to do things. And Jay Gruden wasn't opposed to keeping a lot of those same principles, but he's more of a power run guy. He's more of an in-between the tackles type of, coach. And he likes to have emphasis on the running game in a power fashion with some zone run blocking scheme principles. But I think Chris Forrester is more tailored towards, the zone run blocking scheme being the predominant run of choice when he's the offensive line coach versus having a guy that likes to run more power, which is what Callahan and the Cowboys did a season ago, ran a lot of power. Now, they did have zone run blocking scheme principles in their offense because DeMarco Murray is a hell of a one cut and go back. If you watch the Cowboys, you saw that this season. But he also had a lot of runs in between the tackles with power, and that worked out for them well in Dallas. So what the Redskins are looking to do, and they started to do that last year when they went out and got Sean Laval and they got rid of some of the other guys that were on this line in past years, as they're looking to get bigger along the offensive line. When they got rid of Will Montgomery, when they told Corey Lichtensteiger, you have to put on some more weight, they were looking to get bigger. They wanted to beef up this offensive line because we're in a day and age now where you really can't get by with 295-pound offensive linemen. It's just too hard in this league with the big, beefy guys that are in front of you. You're talking about, 315, 20-pound nose tackles, 330-pound nose tackles that are athletically gifted, strong as oxes. They can push the pocket, collapse the pocket. And in this league, the worst pressure is the pressure that is right in your face. And that usually comes right up the middle. And so you got to be stout along your offensive line. And so really what you would love to have ideally is 5 Trent Williams, where guys are huge but also athletically gifted, but it's just not going to be that way most often. You got to have some big guys up there that just are phone booth maulers, and we don't have enough of those. So you bring in Callahan, you look to try to change some of those principles that the Redskins employed over the past couple of years with the zone run blocking scheme and the lighter offensive linemen. Look to get bigger. Spencer Long, a guy we drafted out of Nebraska last year in the 3rd round, is a guy that you figure to have in the mix this year at guard. Chris Chester's time has to be up. I'm thinking that if he didn't tighten up himself, Sean Laval won't be around much longer in Washington either. So you should expect changes along this offensive line and changes to the way the Redskins do things. And that's what Bill Callahan being brought in means to this Redskins organization. And it also always helps. You've got another voice. And because, again, keep in mind, a lot of you piled on Jay Gruden last year. And I will admit, the jury is still out on how good of a head coach Jay Gruden is. He didn't prove a lot to us last year. But, again, first-time head coach, you have to give this guy a chance. I say this about players. The same rings true for coaches. Everyone does not evolve at the same rate in the National Football League or in sports or in life in general. Everybody doesn't mature at the same rate. You got some people that are mature at age 15 because they had to grow up quickly. The circumstances surrounding their life alters the way that they were brought up, and so they had to grow up early. You got some people that are pampered until they're 30 years old. Their parents take care of them, do everything for them. They don't spread their wings and fly away, and they just mature at a different rate. Same thing with coaches, same thing with players. Give this guy a chance. You look around the league and you see a first-year head coach make it to the postseason, and you're like, wow, why can't our coach do that? Because their situation and our situation, 2 totally different situations. Give Jay Gruden a chance. And so, in saying that, you want to have more guys around him who have done this before, who can have input, like a Bill Callahan coming in, who was a head coach in this league, went to a Super Bowl, has been a head coach in college, has been around the league enough to know the do's and the don'ts, and will be able to give input to Jay Gruden and maybe help him along in his quest to be a great head coach in this league. We'll see what happens, but Bill Callahan's addition to this staff is a big one for the Washington Redskins moving forward. Now, let's jump on to the defensive coordinator hire of one Joe Barry. Now, let's talk about this for a minute because family, you guys are acting up, okay? You guys, you know better than this, man. Y'all gotta stop with the nonsense, okay? Now, I, like yourself, because I went around and I did some homework because I wanted to see what the pulse of Redskin Nation was when the hire of Joe Barry was made. I went and I took the pulse. I went around on different social media sites and I went on different blogs and I read a lot of the comments. And I'm here to tell you, 100% of the comments I read about Joe Barry, about the feelings that you had about the hire, were all negative. Not one single give this guy a chance. Not one single, hey, the past is the past, let's see what this guy has. None of that. Everything was absolutely negative. And so, all I can do is laugh because I said, man, that's my family. Those are my boys. I know them like the back of my head because I knew you weren't going to be a fan. But I want you to hear me out. First of all, I'm going to say this, and I know a lot of you will be like, man, what the hell are you talking about? But this is genuinely how I feel, and I said this to a buddy of mine before this was actually made. When before Vic Fangio took the job in Chicago, I told him, I said, look, I don't want Vic Fangio as my defensive coordinator. He said, really? I said, yeah, I know a lot of Redskins fans would love it if he came here and made himself the next defensive coordinator of the Washington Redskins, but I'm here to tell you that Vic Fangio is out for self. And I said, I don't want Vic Fangio because To me, he reminds me, I don't know if some of you remember, but before Marvin Lewis got his job in Cincinnati, where was he? Here in Washington as the defensive coordinator, because he left Baltimore thinking he was going to get a head coaching job. It didn't work out. And so he was left without a gig. Redskins make him their next defensive coordinator. But remember, it was a rental. He came in for 1 year, did a good job, and was able to secure work as a head coach with the Cincinnati Bengals. He's been there ever since. I don't want a 1 year rental. We're looking to build something with substance. And the only way you do that is through continuity, doing it over and over again, repetition, having the same guys in the building year after year after year. Eventually, if you're doing your job good enough, you will gain employment somewhere else in a greater capacity. That does happen. But I look at Vic Fangio, and Vic Fangio is out for self. He's looking to be a head coach. He wanted the job in San Francisco. He was spurned there. He's looking to put forth another opportunity to build a defense somewhere else. And look, he picked the worst possible spot to go in terms of defensive talent. The Bears, that cupboard defensively is empty, okay? So he could have come here. We don't have much more talent than they do, but we've got some building blocks on the defensive side of the football. They don't have any in Chicago right now. So basically what he's saying is, I'm going to push my chips to the middle of the table, and I'm betting on myself. If I go in, fix Chicago, make them a half-decent defense. See, the bar is set so low in Chicago for defensive prowess that if he goes in and they're middle of the pack, they're going to look at that job that he did with that ragtag group and say, damn, he deserves a head coaching job. He comes here and the Redskins are middle of the pack. We will respect that because of where we've come from, but those around the league might say, that's okay. I don't know if that warrants a head coaching job. He does that same thing in Chicago. He's probably going to be a head coach next year. So I look at it like a situation like, you remember the movie, and this is a classic. If you haven't seen this, shame on you. It's a classic. Remember, There's Something About Mary? That's a hell of a movie, right? And I liken it to that movie, and we're Ben Stiller in that movie, especially when he was younger and he had the braces at the beginning of the movie and he's trying to go to the prom and he doesn't have a date and he sees Mary and he's like, man, I think I got a shot with her. I'm going to try and see if I can get a date with her to the prom. And Vic Fangio was married. And so we go up and we realize, Mary's not even going to the prom. And that was essentially the 49ers telling us, hey, hands off. That's our defensive coordinator. We'll decide if we want to make him our head coach or not. If we don't want him, then you can have at it. But right now, you can't talk to him. So, in essence, we can't go to the prom with Mary. She's not going. Okay, fine. So you start talking to option B. In that case, Joe Barry. So you've got option B all lined up. You go ahead and spray your mouth with a little bit of that minty spray. And so get ready to knock on her door to ask her to the prom, and you get a little message on your phone, and you go, oh, what's this? You see, oh, Mary's going to the prom now. So all of a sudden, you turn around, you get back in your car, and you go to Mary's house. And then you knock on the door, and Mary's stepfather answers the door and tells you that Mary's going to the prom with Woogie. And that's what happened. Vic Fangio went to Chicago. He went to the prom with Woogie. What can you do? He went with Woogie. So that leaves us back to option B, Joe Barry. So now you look at Joe Barry, and what does his body of work say? Joe Barry comes from a long line of coaching linebackers, coaching, defensive groups, whether it's in college at USC, or you go back to his linebacking coaching days in Tampa. He was a defensive coordinator with Detroit, which is what everybody likes to get hung up on. His one stint as a defensive coordinator in this league was terrible in Detroit. Remember, he was a part of that 0-16 group that was the worst in NFL history when the Lions didn't win a game. His stepfather, or father-in-law, excuse me, is Rod Marinelli, who is the defensive line coach for the Dallas Cowboys, who has been promoted to defensive coordinator, if I'm not mistaken, in Dallas. And Ron Marinelli at the time was the Lions head coach. So in essence, everybody feels like Joe Barry only got the position because his father-in-law happened to be the head coach. So he gets an opportunity to be the defensive coordinator. And he was basically a puppet there. His dad wanted to run the cover 2, the Tampa 2 defense, and all he did basically was say, okay, if that's what we're running, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. And so it just didn't work. And he said he's made a lot of changes with his philosophies. Like, that was a 4-3 defense. He's now a 3-4 guy. He's made a lot of changes to the way he does things and the way he approaches the game. And so he's a different guy now. And so if you want to beat him up for that, go right ahead. But I'm telling you right now, you'd be remiss if you do that because he's not the same guy. This isn't the same Joe Barry from 2007, 2008. And he's went on to be the linebackers coach, which is most recently what he was doing for the San Diego Chargers. Did a phenomenal job there, I think, because if you look at the Chargers and the linebackers that they've had over the last couple of years, they're all young. You're talking Manti Te'o, you're talking Jeremiah Tauchu, and the one that I thought he did the most with, Melvin Ingram. Now, granted, Melvin Ingram, a first-round pick, you expect him to be able to get the most out of this kid, but you're talking about injuries. I mean, he tore his ACL. He was dealing with injuries last year. Melvin Ingram grew as a football player last year. I watched him grow up last year and started to materialize into the player that the Chargers drafted in the first round. That, you got to give some credit to coaching. You give some of the credit, a lot of the credit to the player. You also need to give some of the credit to the coaching. And the guy most closely associated with the linebackers is linebackers coach Joe Barry. So I am in the minority that says, give the guy a chance. Y'all stop, man. Y'all welcome my man Joey B to the family. Stop acting crazy with your nonsense. Get out of here with that. He's part of the family now. Whether you like it, you don't like it, embrace him and hope that he can change the fortunes of our defense. I will say this, though. I wanted Wade Phillips, and I think I read a lot of you having the same sentiments. I wanted Wade, man. But this is what the coaching staff, and I know Jay Gruden especially, said. Look, I want a guy with energy, enthusiasm. I'm looking for a guy to come in and raise the spirits of the defense and have them play at a very high level with a lot of energy. We talked about the lack of energy sometimes with this team, and I know Gruden, after several games when the Redskins were drubbed, talked about guys having the zest and the love for the game and wanting to play football and loving the game. I don't think he felt like there was enough of that last season, enough of guys just loving the game of football, wanting to play. I don't think he felt like there was enough enthusiasm and enough energy on the sidelines. And so you talk about Wade Phillips, who is an established coach in this league. You talk about some of the best 3-4 defensive minds in the game. One of the ones that is going to run off the tip of your tongue very rapidly is Wade Phillips. There's not many that have the pedigree and have the credentials of a Wade Phillips in this league. When you're talking defensive coordinators, you're talking defensive minds, there are not many better in the game than Wade Phillips. But you're also talking about a 67-year-old man. And the thing I liked about that intrigued me with Wade Phillips is Wade Phillips has been a head coach like 3 times over. He's not looking to be a head coach anymore. He's not looking to do anything else. He's not looking to go elsewhere. He was in Washington last year, made trips to the home games several times. He's got one of his sons is employed by the Redskins, so he was around Redskins Park. He felt like the right pick for this team. However, keep in mind, Jay Gruden was looking for energy. And what's the opposite of young and energetic and enthused and filled with zest and life? Old. And what is Wade Phillips? Old. So Wade Phillips is the direct opposite of Joe Barry. And so I think that in the long run is why he wasn't the next defensive coordinator of the Redskins. He just wasn't what Jay Gruden was looking for. And yeah, I know a lot of people are bringing up the Tampa connection between Joe Barry, Bruce Allen, and of course Jay Gruden, but I don't know if this hire has as much to do with that as it does the fact that they're just looking for a guy with more energy, someone younger that can come in. And that's why Vic Fangio was a highly discussed defensive coordinator, because he's a younger guy. You know, he's someone that is still looking to make his mark in this league. Whereas a Wade Phillips has already been there, done that. You don't really know how hungry he is to make a name for himself. He doesn't have to. He's already got a name that precedes him. Wherever you go, you hear Wade Phillips, you already know what to expect. With a guy like Joe Barry, who has limited experience in this league, he really doesn't have that big of a track record. He's somewhat still an unknown commodity in most circles. I think he's a guy that deserves a chance. Vic Fangio, to me, isn't going to build the kind of continuity that I'm looking for. Because again, he's out for Vic Fangio. He's looking to one and done the Bears. If he goes in and does a phenomenal job with their defense this year, guess what? Vic Fangio will be someone's head coach next year, and then you got to do it all over again. I don't want to do that. I want Joe Barry to come in here, and I want us to gradually get better as a defense. Keep getting better players in here to give him the ammunition to get this defense where we want it to be. And I want this defense to grow with Joe Barry. So I'm telling you, I'm asking you, I'm pleading with you. Give this man a chance, okay? Don't be quick to just make the Tampa connection and write him off. Don't look at 2007, 2008 with Detroit and write him off. Look at the guy for what he's been over the last 4 or 5 years with San Diego. Look at this guy for what he could be potentially moving forward. He's energetic. He's full of life. The players in San Diego absolutely loved him. They feel like he can come in and give this defense a different edge that they lacked a season ago. Let's see what he's made of. This could blow up. It could be another poor hire by the Redskins, and we could be talking about how bad of a hire he was this time next year, this time in 2 years. But for right now, give the man a chance. And so that's where we are, Redskins fans. We've got a defensive coordinator. We've got a new general manager. We've got a new offensive line coach. There will be more hires to come. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do in free agency. I'm looking forward to seeing what they will do in the draft. Scott McCloughan has already said we're going to be very aggressive come draft time. I expect the Redskins to try to trade back, gain more picks. So don't be surprised if they don't make a selection at 5. Also, he's already said this as well. He's a best player available guy. He's not a draft for need guy. So for all of you like myself who want an outside linebacker, pass rusher specialist and with that 5th overall selection, who want a safety early on in the draft, who want offensive line help, he's taking the best player available. He may take a guy that is not really at a position of need for us right now. He doesn't care. He wants the best player available on the board when the Redskins select in every single round. So don't get upset if we take a guy and scratching your head and saying, why do we need this guy? We already have 2 guys that are good at that position. He's taking the best player available. But I'm here to tell you, when you draft in the top 5, that's exactly what you're supposed to do. You take the best player available. You don't draft for a need. When you're in the top 5, you need everything. You need a lot of stuff. So you don't draft for the best player available at a need. You just draft the best player available because when you're in the top 5, you're looking to hit a home run. You don't want to double. You don't want to triple. You're looking to smash it out of the park. And when you're in the top 5, you need to draft the best player available. And from all accounts, Scott McCloughan is going to do that in each and every single round. And so I leave you on that note that we've got some things in Washington that are going to look vastly different. So you just need to take a seat, buckle up, because this is going to be a much different ride than what you're used to. Hopefully, it's one that we will enjoy much better. We hope that this is a much smoother and enjoyable ride with this new group in 2015 and moving forward. I am a Redskins fan. Etched in burgundy and gold. My Redskin spirit will never die. My Redskin spirit will never fold until we meet again. Hail to my beloved Redskin family. See you guys in a bit. Don't be so quick to make rash decisions and jump to conclusions and talking about all the moves the Redskins have made. Just sit back and let them take effect and see what happens from there. That's from me to you, your resident Redskins fan, Louie T. Have a good one. See you in a bit.
The Redskins Report.